On this 2.0T VW 2-liter turbocharged engine, this is a FSI, similar to a TFSI in the Audis. Only difference is on the TFSI there's little actuators back here for sliding camshaft lobes. There's a few other differences, like 2-stage oil pump versus single stage. Anyway, this one I found a wiring repair, and this was at the dealership, so this was probably under warranty. And that's exactly what they do with these yellow wires. That's what we had whenever we would de-pin a connector and pin a new connector. They probably put a new connector on it as well altogether, but they would basically just put all new pins in it. And sometimes they would have to overlay the wire all the way back to the ECU, the engine control module. Sometimes they would have to overlay it to ground. But I'm going to go ahead and dismantle this wiring and see how far they went and what the connections look like, because a pro did this. So first I'm going to start by disconnecting all of these. This is the N80 evap purge valve. So we'll push this down right here, slide this off, and then this is the intake temperature sensor. I'm going to start by and pull this out of my way a little bit. I'm going to start by just disassembling this sheathing and seeing how far back it goes. Might have to disconnect this intake manifold. So here we have it, all unwrapped. Now I'm going to take these sheathings off and see what he did underneath here. But it's kind of similar to a video I did on how to do a proper wiring repair, except I don't think that this guy used butt splice connectors. So I'm going to slice this heat shrink off and see what happened. So here you have it. I just pulled off the heat shrink, and this guy used a solder connection. Let me zoom in on. It's hard to get a good focus on this. Let me see if he twisted the wires together, or just looks like he just pushed the wires together and melted some solder in between them. And then of course you'd have to have the heat shrink on the back of this wire, and then you would slide it over the connection after you were done, and then you would heat shrink it up. So the rest of these are going to look like that. But Audi/VW, I was trained that butt splice connectors are what they want. You can tell me if I'm wrong, maybe VW teaches different, but not the kind of butt splice connectors that have the sheathing already on them, but the bare butt splice connectors, the really thin ones that I showed in a previous video I just did. And it's still just about as thin as this with solder, maybe just a hair thicker. And if you'll notice, these are a little bit offset. It's not a big bulk right here where all of the wires are connected the same. You kind of offset the wires so it's not as bulky as it could have been. Well, would you look at that? I just pulled another one off out of curiosity, and he put two different style heat shrinks on this one. So this one he only had the thick heat shrink on. This one's a thinner heat shrink, and then he put the black one over it. I'm gonna cut this plastic off and see if there's solder under here. This is kind of why I don't really like solder. So I just carefully took the sheathing off with my razor blade. And my razor blade was very precise, just slicing it down and then peeling it off. And all the strands aren't really touching perfectly. You didn't twist them together. You just kind of buttoned them up next to each other and dabbed a little solder on. Tell me what you think. Let me take another one off just out of curiosity. So I took the black sheathing off this first, and now I'm gonna cut it right down the side and take this clear sheathing off. He put two different sheathings on it and then taped it. Keep in mind, I'm being very careful on cutting this, but some of these strands were not touching. I did not cut that with my razor. Could have been a little bit better, but it worked. Tell me why you think it needed replaced, just the connector. Did one of the pins burn? That happens a lot on taillights on Audis. Like the ground pin will get fried from poor connection. Alright, now you can like and subscribe. Uptown Tuner.